Hi everyone, welcome to my room. Oh, wait a second, I think this is kind of pushing it. The Frenchness is too strong, guys. The Frenchness is too strong. I was swimming and now I've turned into a businessman, essentially, like a businessman who's actually kind of failing at being a businessman. Like this is kind of wrinkled. It's like I want to be an INTJ, but I must remain an INFJ forever. In any case, in this video, I would like to talk about and have a little fun sort of, video where we'll talk about the 5 ways in which you can tell that an INFJ is mad at you. Just let's have a little bit of fun. It's the weekend now, so I think it's an interesting topic for everyone, and it could be informative for non-INFJs as well. So I'm going to tackle these 5 indicators by order of seriousness, by order of gravity, if you like. So from the smallest indicator of gravity to the gravest indicator, to the indicator that essentially suggests, the INFJ is no longer within the periphery of your friendships. Essentially, you've lost the INFJ, and that's a tragedy and everything. But in any case, let's start. So indicator number 1, sign number 1 that an INFJ is mad at you. I would call it subtle questioning. Something that I've observed a lot in INFJ, and it's related to the FE function, also with the NI dominance and the TI function. If you like, the FE and the TI guide the questioning, but the sort of decision to proceed by way of this questioning is guided by NI, because NI seizes the opinions of someone else. So you're the other person, let's say, and the INFJ is struck by something you say and they don't really like what you said. Could be a political opinion, could be a moral statement, could be something you said about someone else, could be, any statement of an opinion of some kind. If you do it once, the INFJ won't mind it. If you do it several times, the INFJ will resort to subtle questioning. So they'll often opt for a strategy such as this. They'll be like, you say whatever, and the INFJ will be like, oh yeah, that's interesting. Do you think there is a way in which this could be seen differently? Have you considered that, this sounds simple, but in order to successfully carry that through, it requires a significant dose of social subtlety and intellectual acuity. INFJs go for subtle questioning a lot because it can be a great way to diffuse a potential conflict by resolving a lack of understanding. Now, in second in the order of seriousness is, I'm hesitating between 2. But what I would say is I'll put at number 2 what I would call formal politeness. In other words, INFJs are always going to be polite on average, unless the INFJ is unhealthy or neurotic or, for whatever, obviously over discrete situations, there can be times when the INFJ is going to be less polite, but overall, it's essential for their inner harmony that the situation is conflict-free. So they will usually tend to be quite polite, but formal politeness, if you see an INFJ displaying a higher level of formal politeness instead of just normal friendly politeness, if there's in the way they talk to you, in the way they address you, if the formality is kind of cranked up a level, that probably means they're mad at you. And they might have resorted to subtle questioning. If that was not enough, they're sort of indicating to you that they are taking a little bit of distance. They're still spending time with you. They're still giving you some time, but the level of politeness has become a bit more formal, and that means a bit more distant. Now, if you still haven't understood that the INFJ is mad at you, then it's going to move to the next level. And the next level is what I call abstract passive aggression. Now, abstract passive aggression is passive aggression which is very much in the nature of feeling types. It's true that we often hear that FE is more prone to passive aggression, but I think FI has its own way of being passive aggressive. There's absolutely no doubt about it. But FE is easier to describe. Often when we think of passive aggression in a type, we think of the kind of passive aggression that might be, led or produced by an extroverted type. Because if that's produced by, say, like an FE dominant, or, like an ESFJ or an ENFJ, that those would be the kind of almost like stereotypical types. They're not the only types, but that's passive aggression where, suddenly you're not invited to a party, or they forgot to include you in a number of phone calls that were supposed to be made for an event. So you're socially progressively made to feel excluded. You're not talked to as much, that kind of thing. So that's kind of active, concrete passive aggression. With the INFJ, it's a little bit different. It's like you're going to sense that the INFJ is not telling you in terms of content. Formal politeness is more in terms of the form, in terms of how they address you. Abstract passive aggression is more in terms of what they say to you. Like the typical compliments or the typical nice comments they might make about a video you made or about something you wrote or about whatever. It will still be a compliment. It will lack the typical adjective that was there before. The adjective won't be there. In what they say, there will be just that minus level of warmth, but not in terms of the form, which is, again, has to do with politeness, form politeness, more with the content. In what they say to you, they just take a step back, and it's almost as if they're not willing to be as warm as they were before. And that's a form of passive aggression, but it's often not social in the strict FE dominant kind of sense. It's passive aggression. It's sending a message, but it's abstract in the sense that you have to work it out for yourself, and it's usually you can see it in what they say to you. Now, number 4 is, at this point you're really dangerously flirting with level 5, which is the end of the process. I think, I would call it conspicuous unavailability. Now, INFJs are not always available. They're introverts. They like their alone time, and they like to spend a lot of time thinking about stuff, intuiting stuff on their own. So you're never going to be expecting an INFJ to be available to hang out 5 times a week. But if you start noticing that they're conspicuously less available to hang out with you than before, it means that there's a serious issue. It means that they're kind of already starting to take a step, not just from the conversation, not just from being warm, not just from being friendly, but also from interacting with you full stop. And they will not necessarily say it to you, which in a way is not a good thing. It's better if they say it to you, but because they don't like conflict, sometimes they'll just take a step back. And they'll be available from time to time, and they'll be nice, they'll be formally polite, they'll be abstractly passive-aggressive probably, they'll continue doing this whole question maybe, but they will be less available, very concretely speaking, and that's a sign. Because an INFJ, they're not available all the time, but they calculate carefully when they are available. So they're usually reliable in terms of how often they are. It might not be very often, but there's a regularity to how often it is. If you start noticing irregularities, especially in decrease, it's a bad sign. And finally, you've seen it coming, the cherry on top or the icing on the cake or whatever you want to call it. It's not good for the other person, but if, there's all the other alternatives have failed, the INFJ has kind of decided that there's no way to save any of this, the friendship is gone, bam, door slamming happens. I've said before in a video, door slamming is not something that is unique to the INFJ. Door slamming happens across the population, across all the types, but maybe the brutality of the INFJ door slam is that the 4 previous methods that I just listed, you kind of have to be very perceptive in order to be able to pick that up. If you're not very perceptive, you don't pick that up, then you might see a door slam as something brutal and you just didn't see it coming. Because there was still some politeness, there was still some warmth, there was still some availability, but the levels had been subtly decreased and you failed to perceive it. And so the door slam comes as a shock. But if you're perceptive, hopefully you can pick up that there's something wrong from the first stage of subtle questioning and not end up being door slammed. But anyway, these were the 4 ways in which you can tell an INFJ is mad at you by order of gravity. Hope you enjoyed it. Hit a like if you can, and I will see you soon, guys. Bye-bye.